Hi, everybody. Just wanted to say thanks for visiting last week and sorry that we couldn't do this demonstration. I think I got everything worked out and I have some visual aids this time. I want to show you some prints. We'll start with that. And then I'll show you how to print a t-shirt with just real basic stuff that you can, you might have to invest $25, something like that, but it's all available on the internet and it's pretty cheap and it's a lot of fun. So you can reuse all these supplies and get a lot out of them. So first I just wanted to show you a few different types of prints that I have here. I'll start with some intaglio. These are some zinc plates. So this is etched with acid on zinc plates. And then you rub ink into the grooves. And then you run them through one of the presses in our studio. I know there's some glare, so I'm gonna have to be a little careful with some of this. But I got lots and lots of prints, right? Lots of goofy stuff here. I always do some Halloween prints just to send out to friends because I love Halloween. And so there's some zinc prints, etchings. Let's see. This is some lithographs. This is a color lithograph. And that's Andre the Giant, actually. These are prints that we do on lithographic stones. So this would be done on a big limestone that you would polish down and you would draw on it. Here's some pitcher plants. Some of these are hand colored and some of them are actually different colored layers of prints. Here's a lithograph as well. You can see it's a different type of drawing. So with a zinc plate, you have really fine lines, but with something like a lithograph, you can use more washes and it has more of a direct drawing feel to it, like charcoal or pencil drawings. So here's another one. This one's kind of goofy. So these are all just some examples of different types of prints that we do here in the shop. I'm going to move these out of the way. Here's some, actually this is all just paper making. We can do some paper making here too. So this is all just different types of paper that we would make. And these are some screen prints. So this is a screen print that I did with like 6 different layers. This is actually Satterley Hall. This is all hand drawn and exposed. So you can do stencils, which is what we're going to do as a screen print today. You can do drawing stencils where you draw on a screen, and wherever you draw, you can print. And so that's what this was. Or you can expose a photo. So you can take photographs, print them out on transparencies, and you can expose them or burn them onto a screen, and you can print from those too. So it's a really versatile process. This is Bigfoot dreaming about pies. Let's see. Here's a glow-in-the-dark earth. There's actually a moon in there, so when you turn the lights off, you can see a glow-in-the-dark moon. This is about as direct of the process as what we're going to do today. So this was created using a stencil. So I drew a picture and then I cut out the stencil in Duralar or acetate. So this clear stuff, this works great because I can wash off the ink and I can reuse it. You could also use paper or poster board, but once the ink is on the poster board, you can't really wash it off. You use it once and then you got to throw it out usually. So I like using this stuff, acetate. You can get it at any store, and like Walmart or any office supply store. And acetate or Duralar, Mylar. You could use copier transparencies. But anyway, so like wherever you see black in this image, the ink is going through. So I'm cutting out the stencil from the Mylar, and I'll show you an example of this. But the trick is, if you're doing something complicated like this, you have to make sure that wherever the white is, it interconnects. There's no spots where there's something floating. I'll show you what I mean by that. Here's some more really basic screen prints. So there's a Wicker Man. Here we've got Hong Kong protester. This is actually the same shirt that I'm wearing right now. This is Frankenstein being harassed. People are calling him names. This is a screen print version of that same print that you saw earlier that I turned into a lithograph. And we've got lots and lots more, but I think we'll just leave it at that, and we'll get moving on to the next process. So I just wanted to show you some screen prints and some other types of prints just to get you guys a little bit excited about this. So you're not going to need a lot of supplies. I mentioned the Duralar. You'll need something to cut the Duralar, something nice and sharp, like an X-Acto blade. Something like this is great. You want to be careful when you're using those. This is a mat cutting mat. You could use a piece of cardboard or something. What you don't want to do is cut onto your table at home through the Mylar, and because it'll cut up your table, whatever surface you're working on. You want to make sure that you have something that you're working on to cut on that's not going to damage anything at home, right? So mat board, cardboard, anything like that will work. So I came up with a little design, and I worked through this a few different ways, but I just wanted to come up with a color separation just with 2 colors. I'm actually going to change this a little bit. I got rid of this large yellow because I realized that'd be too big on a t-shirt. So I'm just going to do this section and then a smaller section, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about there too. And I want to do that little heart. So I just cut 2 stencils. Let's see. You might have a hard time seeing some of this because, it's transparent. But here is one shape that I cut out. It's going to look like this. And here is another shape that I cut out. And it's a little bit floppy because it's been out for a week in the sun, and so the sun's been hitting it a little bit. But we're going to do, and then you can use the pieces that you cut out also as parts of stencils. So you can reuse all these little pieces here and there for different projects if you have at home. So, so I have a little folder full of little shapes and stencils that I can reuse for different types of prints. Okay, so once you have your design cut out, you'll need a screen. And I brought this in. This is an old screen that I had, but you can buy a little t-shirt screen like this from dickblick.com. That's where I get all my art supplies. You can get something like this. It's just if you go to the screen printing section, you can get like small t-shirt screens. This would probably cost you about $10, $15 at the most, and you can reuse it. There's other kinds as well that are a little bit bigger, and you can get these right up to really large sizes. This is pretty small actually, but it's a nicer screen. It's white silk on it, which means it's low mesh, so it lets through a lot of ink. So that's good for stencils. If you see a screen that has yellow mesh, that's probably more for photographic processes. So I would just get a little cheap screen. This one probably costs 20 bucks, and you can have it. You just want to be careful that you don't puncture the screen. And when you're done with it, you want to clean it out pretty quick because the ink will dry in the screen. And you don't usually want to be printing in the direct sunlight like this because it'll dry out your screen too. The ink will get dried in the mesh, and then it might be harder to clean it out. You'll get little spots of white in your print where you might not want it. And also when you clean your screen, just hold it up to the sun, and if you can see any black parts or dots that aren't letting the sun through, then you know it's not clean. It might look dirty still because the ink will stain the screen, but as long as you hold it up to the sunlight and you can see through it, it won't block any ink later. When you're done, you can just clean your screen with dish soap and a sponge too. It doesn't require anything special. There are processes where you start to need some chemistry, but you can do some really fun stuff with just stencils. So I would recommend just trying that at home. Also, ink. So this is Blick Fabric Screen Printing Ink. So this is for fabric, right? That's what you want if you're going to be printing on t-shirts. I could also print on paper with this too, and it's not a big deal. But this is what you're going to want for fabric ink. And I'm just going to use 2 colors. You can get smaller packages. You can get like a pack of 6 different colors for like $15, $20, something like that. Or you can just buy black if you wanted to. But they have all kinds of fun stuff like glow-in-the-dark ink. You just want to make sure that it's for the fabric ink, okay? And Speedball is good, or Dick Blick fabric ink is good as well. The other thing that you'll need is a squeegee. And I have a few different ones. This is just a real basic squeegee. Again, this will cost you $3. This is kind of the next step up for a squeegee. This will be like $5 from Dick Blick. And then I have a bunch of different ones. These are a little bit nicer, and these can range anywhere from $5 to, you know, you get up to really big ones, and they can be, you know, like $30. But for at-home use, you're not going to need anything too big. So something like this is probably going to be perfect for what we're doing today. Actually, I'll use this one, I think. Check and make sure that it fits my screen. Yep, that fits my screen. Perfect. Okay, so that's all we need. We need a squeegee, we need a screen, and we need some ink. And then you need some Duralar, or you could use paper, and something to cut out your shapes with. So we'll get started. I'm going to use white t-shirts. You don't typically want to print on black t-shirts unless you're using white ink. Colored inks on black t-shirts, they fade out really quickly, so you don't really get to see them. There's ways you can get around that, but for the most part, just don't print on black ink on black shirts with anything other than white ink, okay? So I have some shirts, and what you want to do is just slip them onto something, a piece of board, piece of cardboard, just something that's flat that you can line up and find the center of the t-shirt, right? And the reason that we put something in between is because the ink, we don't want the ink to go through the first layer onto the back of the t-shirt, right? So we want to just have something there that will block it. So I've got one shirt here. And another shirt here. I'm thinking we'll do maybe 2. Yeah, I think we'll stick with the 2. So I'll bring this over. So I've got my t-shirt here. Now I want to put my stencil on my shirt, or on my screen. So I'm going to put the stencil on the screen side. This is the squeegee side. So this is where I squeegee. So I'm going to line up my stencil. Let's see, which one do I need to start with? I'm going to do a little trick. That one's going to be yellow. So I want to do yellow last. So I'm going to start with my red. Okay, and I'm just going to take a little tape just to get my design on the shirt. Now, I've got my design on the shirt, but you can see there's screen right here that's not covered up by this acetate. So I want to tape everything else so that when I'm inking, you know, if I have little holes down here where I didn't tape, then ink will go through and it'll go on my shirt in places that I don't want it to. So I need to tape up my shirt properly, or tape up my screen properly. And there's a few different ways you can do that. This is packing tape. What I would recommend, I have specific tape for screen printing, but it can be a little bit pricey and you have to order it. The best thing as an alternative is the blue painter's tape. If you get a couple rolls of blue painter's tape, that's great. It won't damage the screen. Got my scissors here. And I just want to go all the way around my screen. Making sure that I'm not leaving any gaps in the screen where ink can get through and get on my t-shirt. Again, I would use blue painter's tape, okay? So this is probably the first type of project I would do with my screen printing class. So if I'm teaching print 2 and we're doing screen printing, this would be the first type of project I would have people do. I don't need any tape here, but I do need a piece right here. There we go. So you can see I've taped all the way around so the ink won't pass through, right? There's no pieces of screen that are open anymore. Now the other little thing that I want to do, I'm going to print this little star in red, but I also want to have a heart. But I'm going to put this on the next one. So I'm going to print this first layer in just red. Now when I want to line up when I'm lining up my t-shirt and where I want the design, I want to think ahead. This is where people make a common mistake, is they put their design too far up on their t-shirt or too far down. If you look at any t-shirts that you have at home, you'll probably notice that the design starts about 2 inches below the collar, right? So a lot of times people will print when they're just starting out, they'll accidentally print on the collar, but you want to give yourself about 2 inches to the top of the design. And you also don't want to go too low because then the design will be sitting more on your belly area. And you want it mostly on your chest. So just make sure you think about that a little bit before you commit to anything. I'm just straightening out my t-shirt. Okay. And I'm going to line up my design, and I'm just eyeballing it here. It's a little crooked on the screen, but that's okay. And I can use a smaller squeegee because it's a smaller design. I just want to make sure that the squeegee I use is big enough to cover the design. I like to have a couple little cards, pieces of cardboard, to help scoop up the ink. You can use a spatula. Something like this that you would have in your kitchen. You just don't want, to lift up ink off of the screen. You just don't want to damage the screen, so don't use anything with sharp edges on the screen, okay? So this is red, and I'm just going to put a layer of ink across over top of the design. The design starts here, so I'm going to put the ink up here. And this does get a little bit messy, so you want to be careful with this. And that bead of red, I do want it to cover the entire screen, wherever there's design. I have an apron, so that's what the apron's for, right? So the card is nice because I can move the ink around. Have some paper towels handy. And I'm just gonna take my squeegee, and usually you wanna, like I could do this with one hand, but you wanna spread your fingers and you're gonna apply pressure. And now when I'm going across the screen, I don't wanna do it like this. I'm gonna put some pressure down and pull, right? And then scoop up the ink and then plop it back down. With this, I can do just one pass just fine. And this will take some getting used to. You could also watch videos that'll be a little bit more informative, but you know, a little bit of pressure, squeegee, and up, and you'll be able to see that. So I'm gonna move this ink around and just kind of dab it. I'm gonna put one hand on this because I don't want it to move. It's a small enough design where I can get away with that and just use one hand. So ready? It might help also if you have a friend who can just push down on the screen. There's other things that we can use to attach the screen to a table. But for this, we're just gonna do as basic as possible. So here I go. Pretty good pressure. And there we go. Another thing you can do is a push. So there we go. Let's check it out. There's the red on the screen, on the t-shirt. I'm gonna come over and do one more. I'm gonna lean this up somewhere and hopefully not get any ink on it. I'll move this to the side. Bring in my other t-shirt. And I'm doing the first layer on all the shirts at the same time. I'm gonna just line up where I want this again. Right about there, I think. Again, I've got the ink up top, one hand. That's all it needs. Sometimes you can do 2 passes or 3 passes, but a lot of times just one is fine. Okay, so now we've got to clean up this screen a little bit. So I'll show you how I do that. So I'll bring my red back over here. I'll lean this up so you can see me again. And I'll take my squeegee and my card, or I can use a spatula. And I'm just gonna go right down the squeegee. I got a little hair on it. So I don't want that hair getting in my ink. Right back into the jar. That way I'm not wasting anything. I can put the squeegee down, come over to my screen, and then the card is great because I can just kind of scoop up all this extra ink and put it right back in there so that we're not wasting. You want to make sure you have enough ink to cover the entire width of the design, but you don't want to have so much on the screen that, you know, it's gonna become a mess for you to deal with. So that's good. That's all I need to do right now. And I'm gonna throw this out. I would take all the tape off of this, take off my design, and then I would bring it over to the sink. I would recommend not using, if you're gonna do it indoors, like in the wintertime, I would say bring it to the bathtub, okay? Because this ink is gonna get all over the place. Or bring it outside and use the garden hose, okay? That's the best thing. I wouldn't try to make too much of a mess inside, okay? Yeah, if you have a garage, that might be a good place. You don't want to do anything with these inks until you get really comfortable with them, where you're not getting it on carpets, you know, things like that. All right, so got my screen. I'm gonna clean that later, but I don't want you guys to wait too long. I would clean that as soon as possible. As soon as you're done, go and clean it, because it'll make it a lot easier. If you wait an hour or 20 minutes even, it's gonna become a lot harder. So, you know, through the magic of preparation, I've got another screen all prepped here, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I've got my second design, and I'm going to lay it out. So this is going to be yellow. And again, I'm going to tape up a lot of this. One thing I didn't mention, but I probably should have, is you don't want your design to be too close to the edges. If you don't give yourself enough room on the edges of the screen, then it's going to not show up very well. You want to give yourself at least 2 inches and maybe 3 inches top and bottom, 2 inches top and bottom as well, because you need room for that squeegee to get down there, to go up and down. And you also need to have enough flexibility with your design where you're not right up to the edge, okay? I'm going to cut a small piece just to get this where I want it. There we go. And notice I'm taping everything on the screen side and not on the squeegee side. Again, I'm going right up. I'm not leaving any of this screen exposed. I would usually do this a lot neater, and I would take my time with this a little bit more, but you know, we're kind of trying to get things done here. Go. So that is taped up. Now I have this other little thing. I have a little heart in here. Now, because my first layer was red, got some ink on it here. Because my first layer was done in red, and I'm putting yellow over top of the red, wherever they overlap is going to make orange. And I want to keep that heart shape right in the middle of the design because I want the heart to stay red. So, you know, once you get more comfortable with this, you figure out lots of little tricks. I want that heart to stay red, so I'm just going to put a little piece of tape. Fold it over. And stick it right in the middle of my design. And so remember when I said your design has to be carefully planned out if you're doing anything intricate, but you know, I wanted that heart shape, so I can tape it, right? The only other option I would have had is to connect these sections to this, right? So this would have had to actually connect to that. I thought it might be fun just to do it this way. Okay. Got a little bit of red ink floating around in places that I don't really want it. Trying to get that off. I'm going to move this over. So here's my design again. Now, if I had printed yellow first and then printed red over top of yellow, I wouldn't have had that orange where they overlap because the red is opaque, which means you won't be able to, it'll cover up the yellow and you won't see the color interaction. But because the yellow is more transparent naturally, I'll be able to see through the yellow into the red areas and it'll create oranges. Now, this dries really quick, so I don't need to spend a whole lot of time waiting for my t-shirt to dry, the ink to dry, because after just a few minutes like that, it's going to be dry. So I've got my yellow ink. Taking the cover off over the trash. Okay, sometimes you want to stir this up a little bit, but I think it's okay. Just gonna double check here. All right. Now my design is a little bit bigger, so I need to put the ink in a wider section of the screen. Missed a little spot there. Okay. Now I'm going to use a larger squeegee because my design is larger. And this one doesn't quite cover it. Let's see if I have something over here. And I do. So I went and grabbed another squeegee that is, actually this is perfect for it. So I'm going to move get another piece of paper, scrap paper or something, and I'm just moving my ink to where I want it. Okay. And again, I'm just going to dab it, make sure it's covered over the entire squeegee. And I can probably do this with two hands. Another thing I can do is just stick my gut up against the squeegee or the screen to hold it in place. And I'm just going to go forward. There we go. And usually one pass is enough. If you feel, if like you see little spots that you missed, then you might want to give it another pass. So I would push it up gently, not with the same amount of pressure, dab it, and then again at a little bit of an angle, not straight up and down, not too much of an angle, but about right there, I would squeegee and pull across, right? So, but I feel good about this one. And there we go. So I'm going to set this aside for a second. Try not to get anything. There we go. So I'll show you. There's my design. That yellow could be a little thicker, so next time I think I will do 2 passes. So here's this one. And now I'm just going to visually line this up again. Usually I can see through most of these designs and get them lined up pretty well. There's a lot of things I could do to make sure that the alignment is perfectly accurate, but you know, it takes a little bit more detail, time and effort. So, okay, so I got my ink up here. There's one pass. I'm gonna push. This is a push pass. And I'm gonna do one more. There. So that should be pretty good. So usually I'll give it a little nudge like that, and that helps to dislodge the ink. That's a little better. See how much brighter that is now? Okay. So that's a much better yellow layer. I could go back and try to do another layer with that yellow on that t-shirt, but I'm just gonna leave it. Also, you know, I could make as many layers as I want to. I don't necessarily have to stop right now. I could continue on and keep adding layers as much as I want to, so it's kind of fun. If I do a black layer, that's typically gonna be last, and that would be the K screen. K is for CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Okay, so I'm gonna get my excess ink in here, and then I'm gonna show you one more thing that you have to do when you're done. So get my ink back in my container. I'll set this aside. And as soon as I'm done, I'm gonna go clean this stuff. yellow. If I only had one screen, you know, you would go and clean your screen, let it dry, you know, put it out in the sun, let it dry after you clean it, and then just use the same screen. So you really only need one screen to do all of this. But I've got lots of screens here, so, you know, we're just cruising. Okay, so I got my 2 screens. I luckily didn't make too much of a mess. You know, you get pretty good at it, and you get better at not making messes doing this stuff too. I see a lot of people as just crazy, the messes that can be made. So you want to just, you know, try to limit that as much as possible. You can set this aside. Okay, so when you're done and you have your t-shirt, you want to cure the ink. So if I were to wear this as is and just walk around and then throw it in the washer, that ink is going to start to come off after a little bit. So what you want to do is there's a few different things. You could put it in the oven for a little bit, but I probably wouldn't recommend that. On the ink, it'll give you directions. It says heat curing is preferable to air drying. Use household iron at medium heat, 300 degrees Fahrenheit, with clean cloth or paper between iron and fabric. Iron each side for 3 minutes. So that's all you have to do. Take your iron, plug it in, set it on medium. You could also set it up higher. I don't think that's gonna hurt it. I would probably set it to cotton or linen, okay? And then I would just, after this is dried for a little bit, you can iron directly on it. I've never had any problems with it. Iron one side for 3 minutes, you know, keep it moving. Turn your shirt inside out, and then iron the other side for another 3 minutes. If you have a heat gun at home, not a blow dryer, but a heat gun, you can use that too and just go over the design. You know, you want to keep it moving. You don't want to have the heat gun be too close. But you know, most people have an iron at home, so just use that. That's the easiest way to do it. And then you can wear it right away, and you shouldn't have any problems. Okay. Thanks for being patient with me and coming back, and hopefully you guys can take a peek at this video, and it's not too long, and you can maybe have some fun with it. Like I said, it doesn't take a lot of investment to be able to get some basic supplies. Like I said, you can get some ink, $8 for a jar of ink, some blue painter's tape. This is screen printing ink. A squeegee, just get a basic squeegee from dickblick.com, and a screen. Just get a real basic screen, and that way you have a screen, black ink goes a long way, a squeegee, and you can make t-shirts for your friends, for your family. You can easily do letters, words, you know, fun shapes and stuff like that. Keep your designs basic to begin with, but then, you know, later on you start to learn how to do some tricks. Okay, thanks, and I hope everybody had fun. All right, we'll see you later, and good luck and happy printing. All right, bye.